So I am sitting with Michael Philpott, and he is a public speaking coach. And the reason that I want to talk to Michael is because public speaking can be a thing of nightmares for people, not all people, but some people. And going into it prepared can minimize the anxiety that you feel. And Michael, I wanted to talk to you about that because that's your jam.
My
So
gig.
it is. Thank you for talking to me today.
Pleasure. Thank you for uh, having me in your caravan-y thing. Caravan.
My background doesn't show it, but I am in the caravan, yes.
Yeah.
Michael, so my first question, tell us a bit about your background with regard to public speaking.
Yep. So, ironically, started in outdoor guiding, having to speak to groups of very attention deficit students who wanted
Mhm.
to do stuff over there really quickly, but we needed to do the serious stuff over here. So learning very quickly how to be concise and accurate and short and sharp with messaging, but making sure that you got the outcome of, that harness is actually put on properly for the young ones. That's kind of where it started, and it grew from there into speaking for a company called Full On, where we threw American students off a 200-foot cliff out the back of Mount Hartmethven, but we also, they were the American ambassador students as part of the People to People program. And we would also run personal development program throughout the day. So we had to speak at through the day for different portions of the events. And there were things like old school line of choice, are you living your life above the line or below the line? One of my most favorites was Dreams, Goals, Aspirations, which was the evening presentation where they were all almost dead from being exhausted from the day's activities. And you basically had to get them to dream, believe, dare, do type of stuff. And you controlled an entire room just with your voice, and you kind of brought them all down, and then you got them thinking, and that was really nice. That was cool. And within that, we used to have 6 of our own staff who would sit in the audience, and they would have a pen and paper, and they'd be checking every single word you said. And at the end of your session, you'd well done, everyone, off you go, do your next thing. And you'd walk outside, and those 6 people would come straight to you, and you'd be straight into your feedback process from the talk you just gave. From there, I got picked up by a person who heard about the work I was doing and went, "You'd be perfect for corporate stuff, you know." But at the time, I had dreadlocks, facial piercings, covered in tattoos and stuff like that. And their client was New Zealand Police, IRD, FMG, Cigna Insurance type of thing. So haircut, piercings gone, suit on, feeling super awkward, walked into like the 26th floor of the Vodafone building in downtown Wellington and started delivering high performance coaching workshops, which I redeveloped and redesigned the content based off my background in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So it sort of grew from there, got into that, did that for a while, ended up working in prisons for a bit too, doing some work there, and then started our own company in 2012 and went down the training road, training and development, but kind of ended up becoming the volunteer speaker coach for TEDx Christchurch, and coached Lilia Taura to become the most viewed TEDx talk in New Zealand, the 5th most viewed on the planet, viewed over 12.5 million times. So that kind of started this thing of like, maybe you should be speaker coaching because it seems that you're okay at it. And it was like, yeah, okay, let's try that. And my first official client was what do you, who are they? Jade Software Corporation. Yeah. So it kind of went from there. I had this funny little thing happen in my mind where I was like, I'm never going to run training again. That's it. I'm done. I'm just going to focus on speaker coaching. And at the end of a year of solidly speaker coaching people, I was kind of almost in tears. I was semi-depressed. My life was chaotic, like just, ugh. And I discovered that I need to be on stage as much as helping people in the background prepare for being on stage. So that ambivert part of myself, extrovert, introvert, needed both sides. And here we are today. I'm back running training workshops on pitching, presenting, public speaking, and presenting to camera. And I've reduced my coaching clients down to 4 a week maximum. So that's where we are. That's my background. That's how I got here, and that's what we do now. And I've been in the background trying to put focus on my computer so I don't get the bings. So that's what I've been looking over there for.
Oh, right, yeah. It's Monday morning, isn't it? So everything's pinging at the moment.
Yeah. It'll be pinging. So yeah.
So 5 mistakes. What are 5 mistakes that you see people make with their public speaking?
So 5 common ones are, and this is really hard for people. Some people, the second one, people really struggle with the idea of, and I'll tell you why. So the first one is procrastinate, right? So this whole thing around public speaking, people don't like it. And, there's all those rubbish studies done that a person would rather be in the coffin at their funeral rather than speaking at a funeral. And I don't know if it's quite that bad, but because it's a scary thing, a lot of people get given, okay, in a month's time or 2 months' time, we're going to get you to do a presentation. And they're like, oh, cool, great. Oh, I hate the idea of it, right? So what they do is they're just like, it's not the first thing that's in front of them every day when they get up. They have their life, they have their work, and then they have this damn presentation in 2 months' time that they have to prepare for. So what's the thing they focus on? Well, it's not going to be the thing that makes them feel self-conscious and nervous. They're going to just go, oh, it's so much easier. I'll get to that later today, maybe. And a week goes by and another week goes by. And then they start to get more nervous because they've put it off. And then they do this kind of cram thing at the end. So the biggest mistakes, and this is the clients I even work with, they procrastinate. Oftentimes a client will come to me and they'll say, hey, I need your help. I've got a talk coming up in 4 weeks. And I'm like, great. When did you hear you had to give this talk? And they're like, 3 months ago. I'm like, wow, would have been good to see you 3 months ago because we could have used all of that time. I'd rather have speakers ready to hit the stage, 2 weeks out from their talk, and they know it. They've practiced it. They're like, I'm doing that talk in my sleep. But quite often it works the other way. So procrastination is the first one. The second one is people don't write scripts. Now, this is where it gets there's a bit of disagreement here with different people that I talk to about it. And it's like, oh, but if I write a script, I'm going to speak and I'm going to sound scripted and rigid, and I'm not going to have freedom to confuse your audience and speak in circles. I see where you're going with that. So there's this kind of, fallacy that a good speaker just speaks naturally. They don't need to prepare. They might have a couple of bullet points that they want to talk to, but that creates this big problem of not being able to time your talk, right? So procrastinate, don't write scripts, don't time their talks. So if you don't write a script and then time how long it took you to go through the entirety of what you're going to say, then you cause massive problems for your event you're speaking at, because that event will have a time slot allocated for you, right? You've got 10 minutes. If you haven't written a script, you haven't timed it, it means that you get up on that stage and you're like, it might be 10, it might be 15, it might be 20. I've seen speakers go double over their time, and that totally destroyed the entire event because all of the time frames for breaks had to be shifted, all of the next speakers had to be shifted, and the person had a script. They literally you could see their script in front of them, but they just didn't time it on their phone. Like bring up the timer on your phone, push go, speak out loud, read your script, and it'll tell you exactly how much time you've got. Reduce it or make it bigger. So again, procrastinate, don't write scripts, don't time their talks, and then of course they have shitty slide decks. So why do people have, this is a real pet peeve of mine, right? Like, why do people have shitty slide decks? Well, if you do those first 3 things, you're bound to have a crap slide deck. And the reason being is you procrastinated. You've waited till the last moment. Great, cool. You didn't write a script. Fantastic. So what are you going to do? You can't time your talk. So you're going to take all of your content and you're like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw it all on the screen because then I can just read it. Great. And it's like, as soon as you have a slide deck that's full of words Well, you might as well just send it out in an email, and those people could have sat at home drinking a cup of tea in their comfortable loafers and read it themselves. But instead, you're just going to read it to them. Now, the problem with reading from a script is that uh, we read when we see stuff at around 400 words per minute. When a speaker speaks, they speak at an average of 150 to 170 words a minute. So we've already read what they're saying. So,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So all we're doing is watching a person who's boring us to tears as they read something that we've already read. And then the other problem there is if the screen's full of content and they divert from what's written on it, well, we have to choose. It's like, do I read what you've put up there or do I listen to you? And if I'm reading and not listening to you, then I might miss something. Now you put your audience in a position of risk. And they're like, well, it's best if I do nothing. I'll look at my phone because my phone is safe, right? So again, crappy slide decks come about because of that, but they create so many other problems. You know, if you become reliant on that PowerPoint that's there, you now have disconnected from your audience entirely. And the last one, final one, the fifth one is they don't practice their delivery. And you
Mm.
can't practice your delivery if you are working to bullet points. You can't practice your delivery if you don't have a script. Uh, if you're just reading off your slide deck, well, you can practice that. You get really good at it, you know. But again, you're not practicing anything. So practicing is the part where you know what you're going to say so well that you now embody the movements and the gestures that go with it to make it powerful. You know where to stop for a minute and pause and bring the audience in. That's practicing. So people don't do any of those things, and that's why they need me as a coach.
That's succinct and punchy, actually. You've obviously practiced that, prepared, didn't need to read off bullet points.
Well, here's the thing. So here's the actual truth of people who speak well. They refine what they're saying and they say it over and over and over enough that it's like these are the key things that you want to talk about. There are just five. They're loaded on my hand. You know, I can go through them one at a time, making sure I've checked them off, but they keep me on track. But the fact is, I know that so well because I've said it so many times in so many different ways. I can do variations to it, but I'm speaking off the cuff because I know
Mhm.
exactly what I want to say. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that would have started as a script.
Mhm.
I had to write that down somewhere and then refine it. And if people want to become better speakers, refine your thoughts down and do repetition of what you're speaking about. People who are in, you know, management positions, for example, where they have to, can you just speak on this subject or this subject or this subject? That's difficult because it's like you're not speaking those subjects all the time.
Mhm.
So if a speaker, for example, you know, I have quite a few of my speakers will come to me and they've been asked to speak, you know, they're a CEO, can you speak on leadership at this event? And it's like, do you know how big the subject of leadership is? You know, that's hard. Go back to the event organizer and just say, what do you want the audience to be able to do at the
Mhm.
end of me speaking? And they go, oh, well, we want them to be able to do these three things. And it's like, okay, I'll do a talk on leadership that helps them achieve those three things. That's easy.
Mhm.
But the worst thing you can ever do to a speaker is go, oh, just whatever's, you know, whatever you think would be good. It's like you're doing all the hard work to find what might be good. So yeah, another part is just keep those thoughts refined and don't let other people kind of give you too big a room to speak in. Get them to give you a box, you know, that you can
Mhm.
speak within. Yep.
Mhm. I just want to pause there for emphasis because I like that. That was yeah, if you yeah, okay. Um, what are the different types of public speaking?
So different types would be these because there are four kind of areas that I work in, right? So you've got inspirational, educational. Now that would be your Lilia Tawara talk where she's, you know, speaking about Gloria Vale, inspirational, educational. they're kind of educating us at the same time when they're sharing that new information, and it inspires us. There's some inspiring, deeper, bigger message within it. The next is sales, right? It's just sales. You're speaking, for example, at a wealth creation seminar for 5 minutes, and you want to make $1 million from speaking. You want to sell something. That's a whole different style of speaking to educational, inspirational. And your slide decks will be different with it as well. And then you've got tech. And I like to separate tech because tech sits in a world of its own. It's a little bit educational because you do, to a degree, you have to educate your audience on your subject. So, early stage AI, if you've got a 50% expert audience and 50% customer consumer, well, you can't presume that everyone knows what you're talking about. So you have to respect the educated audience, but also respect the uneducated audience. So you have to speak in a totally different way where you educate the uneducated because they're the people that want to buy stuff off of you. But you also want to impress the people who are experts as well. So you've got to speak in two ways at the same time. And as well as that, it's tech, so it can't be dry and it can't be boring. So it's a real ball of stuff going on there. And then the fourth would be pitching for investment. So pitching for investment is really specific and special because it's generally done in 7 to 10 minutes. And you might be asking a group of strangers, the work I will be doing will be anywhere, the capital raise will be anywhere from $5 million to $50 million. And you've got 7 to 10 minutes to get the idea across, big picture idea of what the problem is, the pain that it causes for not just yourself or your industry, but for them in particular, so that they have a vested interest in your product or service very quickly. Because if you don't, well, why do they care? And then basically you've got to explain how the business works, all those types of things, and then you've got to ask them for lots of money. But at the same time, especially with investment pitching, and this is the problem area I find across all of them, but mostly in investment pitching, investment pitchers the founders will get up and they'll go, I need to be authoritative. I own the company and I know everything that works in the company. I'm qualified for you to give me money. And what happens is they just rattle on about all the stuff they know, right? About the business and about how it works and stuff. So they're trying to build authority, but it comes at the cost of liking and trust. So, you get these really smart people that can't connect with an eclectic audience of people that you want money from. So my work there is do I like you? Do I trust you? Do I respect you? Because if you get those three things, well, now I'm interested in maybe giving you a bit of money. So yeah, those are the 4 key areas of speaking that I predominantly work in. There are variations to that, right? So you've got presentation in a conference room, you've got a big stage type of thing. There are those smaller variations which are different again, but we'll stay away from those for the moment. I just want to add, and I think this is really important for people to understand, and this actually comes from Mark Bowden. So Mark Bowden's a friend of mine. He's an international expert in human behavior and body language. Now, he's based in Toronto, Canada. He does a really cool piece in a TED Talk where he talks about confirmation bias and cherry picking. So that whole thing around focusing on liking, trust, and respect before we influence and persuade. The key there is that within a very short period of time, we are biologically programmed to judge people, right? I know that we're, don't judge, don't be biased. It's hard work. We are biologically, hardwired to do that. And the area of issue is that if we think or feel that someone is a potential enemy straight away because they haven't focused on liking and trust, we will then, after that moment, cherry pick information from everything they say and do, the way they move, the way they sound. We'll cherry pick everything they say to back up why we shouldn't like them and trust them.
Mm.
Yeah. And the opposite is also true. So if within that first 30 seconds, 45 seconds to a minute, when they start speaking and presenting, if we go, "Oh, I feel safe. I like you. You've kept it simple. You've spoken to me. It's been great. I like you and trust you." From
Mm.
that point on, they will cherry pick out of what you say reasons to back up their confirmation bias of why they like you and why they trust you, which is why we get, that whole charismatic thing where it's like, that person just has charisma. I like them. It's like, yeah, it's a skill and it works because I think after the fact, if you totally stuff up a presentation, but you've built liking and trust and respect with the audience, they're like, it's okay, it's all right, because we like you. They'll laugh it off and stuff. But if you've triggered potential enemy in them, you know, and stuff up, they're like, "Oh, just another reason, you're terrible." And the room will go quiet and it'll feel awful. So
Mm.
it's really important, liking, trust, respect, before
Mm.
we try to influence and persuade. And authority is not a way to influence and persuade, not to start with.
Mm. Well, I mean, my next question was, why do you need a coach? And I feel like the last few minutes you've already been explaining that, because there's so much more than here's some information you want to convey, write it down and say it to people. There's so much more to that. And what can a coach do?
So the idea of coaching, right, is everything I've said. Let's do it this way. Uh, there are 5 people of influence. We've all, well, not with all, that would be assumptuous. There is a theory that there are 5 people of influence that we have around us, right? And this comes from the statistician Jim Rohn. And he says the 5 people we have closest to us will directly impact the next 5 to 7 years of our lives for our professional, personal, financial, romantic. All of our relationships will be based off those 5 people.
Mm.
So when you go to do a presentation, you're going to talk to one of those 5 people.
Mm.
And those, depending on how good they are at what they do, those 5 people will give you the advice and you'll go, well, I trust you. So I'll take that advice and I'll go and practice like that, or I'll write it like this, or these kind of jokes will be appropriate, maybe not. You know what I mean? Um, and I am not one of those 5 people. So
Mm.
I'm outside of everyone I work with. I'm outside of their circle of influence, which means I see something and I go, that ain't happening,
Mm.
because in me they'll be triggering potential enemy. In their
Mhm.
friends or close 5, they know them that way, so they can't register it. It won't register on their emotional scale.
Mm.
An example of that would be an event at a at a professional club that has memberships, and it's very prestigious. There was a speaker that got up to speak, and he opened his talk with 2 horrendously sexist jokes, and they were totally inappropriate for so many reasons. At the end of him speaking, 5 women who were at the group who I knew went up and spoke to him and said, "So let's just talk about those opening jokes." And he was like, "Well, what was wrong with them?" "I spoke to my wife and she said they would be fine." One of the 5 people that you spend the most time around, right? And their answer to him well, that's just a great demonstration of intergenerational misogyny. And he was like, "What?" And they were like, "Exactly." Um, you've got to have someone who is outside of your normal circle of influence, because they just won't agree with you. Everyone
Mm.
else is so agreeable. Who does the CEO go to go, I want to do something that's going to make me really vulnerable in front of you? Is that going to be one of their one of their staff, one of, someone they work with?
Mm.
They don't want to do that. So they'll come to someone like me, and it's like, they need to be vulnerable. I will challenge them to push past what they currently find comfortable, because that's where the good stuff is, the gold is.
Mm. Mm.
Oftentimes for especially at that C-suite level, there's an emotional disconnect between them and their audience, and that's internal or external, and that's because they have a professional belief that they have to maintain this distance. But that's not what people want. They want the real person behind the CEO, the personal stories that they can align to, the personal struggles that that person's had to overcome to get to where they are. That's where the good lessons are. And that's inspirational for other people around them to go, wow, you're so vulnerable and open. And that's the kind of company I want to work for, as opposed to cold and distant and disconnected. So a coach, me in particular, as a coach, that's what we do. We challenge in all areas. But there are two other parts to it, which is it makes it specialty to me, right? Which is I have ADHD. And that means that my natural attention span is around about 45 seconds if a person's speaking, especially. And within that, if I can't really get emotionally connected to what they're saying, if I don't know what they're talking about because they're speaking way over my head, like with some jargon that makes no sense to me, or if they're just dull and dry and whatever it is, my brain will just go, squirrel, I'm gone, I'm out of here. And I literally in a coaching session will do that. It's like I'll feel myself, I'll be like really trying to focus, and then it's like gone. I'm like, oh, stop. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, I'm gone. I switched out, man. So let's find out what happened within there, why I switched out. And then we repair that, because there's guaranteed to be a lot of me in the audience. And it's not just that I'm ADHD. I mean, speakers are competing with technology. There is something at our fingertips that is way more interesting than the person speaking if they're not entertaining and engaging us. So ADHD is just a sort of, I mean, this technically is ADHD for people, right? So you have to be better than everything else that people have got at their disposal. So my ADHD works in the way of sort of going, there's a trigger. The other one is I'm a non-subject matter expert in someone's field. Like I do what I do. I don't know what they do. I don't know the nuts and bolts of what they do. Now, if for example, executive leadership, if someone in executive leadership gave a presentation, a mock one to their audience of their peers or, below them, if they said, how was that? Not one of their employees is going to go, I didn't get it. It's not in their best interest not to get it. They have to go, yeah, it all makes sense. I got it, because they can't look like they don't know what's being spoken about. And that's not representative of an audience. An audience doesn't naturally know everything. So the superpowers are ADHD and non-subject matter expert. I'll literally stop a person and go, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Dumb it down. When I when I work in aerospace, especially rocket propulsion technology, it's literally like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I've had clients who have said to me, and they're like, but I dumbed it down already. I'm like, let's dumb it down some more, and that's the curse of knowledge. We have such a big piece of experience that when we dumb it down, it's like no, dumb it down more. It's got to be it's got to be base level, and then start at base level, and then just gradually work your way up. But don't expect people to meet you where you are with their knowledge base. Yeah. And especially for academics, a lot of them will say to me, but well, I don't want to sound dumb, and I don't want the audience to feel dumbed down as well. I'm like, that's fine. Say the high level process part of it, right? Like whatever the high level variation of what you want to say that first. Say it short, say it quick, and then go, in other words, what I mean by that is this. And they're like, oh, I can do that. It's like, yeah, you can. Just speak to both, right? Speak to both sides of the audience. And both sides of the audience love it, because that's ultimately what you want. The way to tell if it's been done well is at the end of a talk, any presentation that's given where there's a potential for Q&A, when the speaker has finished and the MC gets up and goes, "Oh, thank you, that was wonderful. Any questions?" If there are none, it means that the audience side that they know the subject are like, "No, it was good. I just covered everything. It was fine." The other side of the audience is like, I have no idea what they're talking about. So it's like
Mm,
there are no questions, right? Because this side of the audience have just been educated on something really amazing and interesting.
mm,
They're going to have questions for sure. This side
mm,
might have a few questions, but they're not that's not the side you want questions from anyway. They're
mm,
already experts in your field. They're not buying what you're selling. They are. So you want
mm,
questions from them. Yeah.
mm. And I suppose that trust and respect that you earned earlier on is going to set the scene for being able to ask those questions as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you a quick example on questions and how tricky they are. And this is something I'd probably put more out to MCs,
Hmm.
um, that they could probably do a bit better job of. So whenever you ask or invite an audience of 100, 200, 300 people, whenever you invite them to ask a question, right? So great talk, thank you very much. Any questions? And the audience goes, "Well, I don't know. I think I might have a question, but there are 300 people in the room. And now I'm
Mm,
the public speaker. Your presenter had chance to prepare. I don't. What if my question's dumb? I'll look like an idiot in front of 300 people. I'm just going to say nothing. I've got my phone. I'm going to look at that." You know what I mean? It's like
yes.
you're unconsciously making an audience member, a public speaker,
Mm,
with no preparation. So a way around that is and we did this with the Jade Software Corporation artificial intelligence talk. So we had a piece of music that was in the lead in video that we played for the growth of technology over a lifetime type thing, and it was really fast, the video process, but the music was nice in the background. We detached the music, and at the end of his talk, I said to Ed, "Get on, once the MC's done his thing, just go, cool. I've spoken for a whole 18 minutes about a whole bunch of different stuff. And no doubt you have questions. You might just not know what they are yet. So take 30 seconds to have a quick chat with the people on either side of you about any
mm,
questions you might have. And then now to make them feel safe to talk, we push play just on the music, not the video, just the music. So they had a safe buffer of sound to talk to each other under. Oh, did you have any
mm,
questions? Well, what do you know? Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. But what they've done under that umbrella of safety is they've practiced, they've thought about a question, they've rehearsed, said the question, rehearsed it, practiced it. Now they feel comfortable. So when the MC goes, "Any questions?" they're like, "Yeah, I've got heaps of questions, but I feel confident now to ask it," as opposed to being scared, to being publicly embarrassed.
mm.
Yeah,
Love that. That was a tangent, but a definite value add that
it
one.
was a tangent. It was a tangent. I've got my cushball back. I'll less tangents. Uh,
And the last one I had was you mentioned your ADHD, and I
yeah,
really wanted some tips from you about how to be a more inclusive speaker with regard to the types of different learning styles, ADHD in particular, given that that's your
that's my
area of
gig.
expertise.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep it brief. We have the easiest way to explain it is we have neurotypical over here,
Hmm.
neurotypical, and neurotypical people take in information in a certain way, right? And they will, through their experience of learning, they will give information outwardly, presentations, whatever kind of way they're giving out information or communicating, they will communicate in the way that they learned how to communicate, what's primary for them. ADHD or neurodiverse, we've learnt to take in information a way different kind of way. There's a lot more movement, a lot more gestures, a lot more excitement, a lot more energy. And we like taking in information that way. We struggle taking information in a
Mm.
neurotypical way. So the area that I'm working on now with people, whether it's the coaching I'm doing or whether it's the workshops I'm running, I'm taking typical people and
Mhm.
teaching them how to move the needle a bit more to the center. I'm taking
Mhm.
neurodiverse people like me and teaching them how to move a bit more to the center. Because what we're
Mm.
effectively looking for is the Goldilocks zone between neurotypical and neurodiverse, so
Mm.
that for an eclectic audience, you can speak in a way that neurotypical go, I like it. It started off nice and calm. It was linear. It was structured. It wasn't too handsy. Wasn't too fast for me. I liked it. You've warmed me up a little bit, you know. But at the same time, the neurodiverse people are like, I like some stuff that's going on here. I don't know what it is. You've got me. I would have normally left by now, but you've got me. You're warming me up, and you're just warming both of them up, right? So that when you
Mm.
get to the middle, you're that beautiful combination of two very, very different, unique forms of communication, but you've brought them both together and you've spoken to both parts.
Mm.
That essentially is what I think we're all trying to achieve through what we're calling neuro inclusion, right? Like, how
Mm.
are we more neuro inclusive? So now we're seeing, documentation, documents in the workplace, simplified language. Why do we need to make a document that's that big, that's written in words no one understands, that cost a lot to produce, that no one reads? That's
Mm.
pointless. We can create a document that's that big and it's written in simple language that people can understand and people will read, which means we
Mm.
actually get the outcome we're looking for. And for everyone, that's the key point. We all have
Mm.
an outcome we're looking for when we communicate. But if we are unaware of what we're doing, or we're unaware of what we're doing, we're not getting our outcome.
Mm.
So neuro inclusion means that we might, and I think that's the bit where people actually struggle is, yeah, but I am like this. I like being like this. I need to move like this. And it's like, that's great. Let's figure out how we can just bring it down a little bit,
Mm.
because I know that your thoughts are racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And the problem is you'll run out of breath and then your brain will go
Mm.
blank, right? And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, it's like, let's bring it down. And over this side, it's like the challenge is, well, we need a little bit more, in your voice. We need a little bit more in your facial features. We need a bit more connection there. How do we do that? And for them, they're like, ugh, that's horrendously scary. I like
Mm.
being emotionally distant from stuff. So both sides have their challenges, but
Mm.
essentially what they're learning to do is empathize from another person or learner's perspective. And that's the key, is to step outside of your own needs and find and look for the needs of the other people that you're speaking to. Push ball drop.
I was like, yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
man. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's like a lovely that's a soundbite right there, actually.
Good.
I love it. um, Amazing. That's amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that expertise with us because there's so much value in that last 40 minutes that we've just shared, talking about
Awesome.
this. And
Awesome.
as I kind of talked about at the start, it's a topic that some people have nightmares about. Public speaking can be a thing of absolute fears. So stripping it back and talking about it and as passionately as you do as well, because it makes it so approachable to talk to you about it because you know your stuff. So I'm going to leave some contact details for Michael if you want
Yeah.
to figure out how he can solve your public speaking conundrums that you're working through, or whatever. Because obviously Michael knows his stuff and he's going to get in behind you and make sure it's a success if you've got something that you need to get done. Thank you again, Michael. That was so good.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'll put a end note on there as well, because I know this is a subject that we're probably going to talk about.
Yes.
If you do, because of my ADHD, if you do reach out to get in touch with me, you're going to get in touch with Natalie. So Natalie is
Ah,
my
yes.
is my EA, and because of my ADHD, my area of focus when I want to get stuff done, I need people around me to safeguard my attention. So what happens
Mhm.
is you'll reach out, anyone that reaches out, you'll get in touch with Natalie, and Natalie will go, hey, how can I help you? And she'll put you in touch with me. And she'll sort of be the go-between, which just helps me stay focused. The other thing too that I want to finish on the ADHD thing,
Mhm.
more and more now, I have a cush ball. Whenever I run workshops and stuff, people have access to cush balls, right? I don't necessarily use them when I speak, if I'm speaking on stage or something like that. But if you ever feel the need, have something. You know, we are
Mm,
becoming more and more accepting of the fact
mm,
that people need to have things that make them able to be their best selves.
mm,
And if having a tactile, quiet thing um, makes you feel more comfortable and allows you to be your best self, then use it. There are more and more people now who are advocating strongly for inclusive workplaces,
mm,
inclusive and neuro-inclusive workplaces, neuro-inclusive recruitment processes, you know, like knowing that sometimes people aren't at their best during an interview, but allowing
mm.
them to have things that allow them to be their best selves. Um, so if there is anything, by all means, use it. There are tools out there that are being made for ADHD people to have to make them feel better.
Mm.
That would be it, my final piece. Outside of that, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk about something I am deeply passionate about.
Thank you.
No worries.